Welcome to ArtCo Afternoon Arts. Thank you for joining me. My name is Amber Crimmings. I am the artistic director / cat herder. I've got wet hair today and I don't care. We were busy working on site, getting a really fantastic show in the works together. We're starting to frame stuff up. A bunch of panels that came down off of a lot of businesses in the Deep Ellum area where artists came together, a grassroots movement in order to uplift the community and give back. And we're really just super lucky and blessed to be able to help and be a part of showcasing this show and hosting it in our site. So make sure you take a look at our Facebook page or website. You can look on mine too. I've got some great photos of that stuff in progress. So it was a lot of fun to play Construction Gal this morning, and it makes me feel re-energized working and being able to, put some sweat back into ArtCo and know that we have things that we're working towards opening and working towards operation. And these are things that it's fun to be able to restructure how we look at things. And that's what today's art journaling is about, is restructuring how we look at things. Hey Bill, hey Linda, happy you're hanging out. Make sure too you guys are looking at our website and our virtual art gallery. We've got a lot of pieces of work by local DFW artists for sale, so make sure you're taking a look at the variety that we have, not only in personality, but also in price. And then also make sure you're taking a look at all of our live streams. And if you haven't hit subscribe on YouTube, please make sure you do that. We are, ever so close to being able to monetize. This simple thing will help us find new ways in order to fund our ability to stay open. So please do that simple act of clicking subscribe. We do a lot in order to give back to community. Doobs here, he tries to do a lot too in order to grow creativity and all that jazz. And he always loves to hang out during these classes, so it's fun to be able to share all that. So we're going to go into our art journaling therapy and book idea today. And so I'm just going to use my regular book. I like to do these where they're in books so I can kind of go back and see what we did, see what we made, and kind of play around with all kinds of stuff. And this also reminds me to keep it really small. And so if I'm working small, then you'll work smaller. And this makes it easier to finish a piece in about an hour or less or so. And then this is also good practice even for artists that like to work big, because it's always good to do some planning when you're smaller sometimes, because sometimes that can help. And so this is another good technique and a good way to practice out in things that perhaps you're not extremely comfortable with. And then also, of course, creativity is something that can grow and move into other areas of our lives. And we want that to happen because it helps us be great people and be more successful. Creative thinking's a wonderful thing, and all the things around us that we love, down to designs on the clothes that we wear. These are all things that were created by a person who was probably an artist. And so we do love all of these things around us. I mean, heck, computers can be seen as a sort of art form, Steve Jobs, that creative thinking. So we want to make sure that we're growing that. And so that's what our art journaling does for us. And then art therapy kind of helps us deal with all the craziness that's been going around. And so today we're going to talk about peacocks. I love peacocks. They're a beautiful bird, and they also have wonderful historical significance when it comes to art history. So when we look at European, specifically art history, and especially Christian art history, because really when we look back in time, mostly artists only worked for the entities that had money. So way back when in art history, long time ago, we only had money from our religious institutions, and then also it started to grow into the richest of rich families. Medici family was a family that funded a lot of artwork, specifically religious artwork. And so peacocks was featured in a lot of early Christian artwork as a representation of rebirth and Jesus and all that jazz, because peacocks are an extremely beautiful bird. If you haven't seen a photo of a peacock, here, let me see if I can find one on here with the whole plume. A plume is a spreading of feathers. And so peacocks are these beautiful birds that are the most awkward at flying, by the way, which is also one of the reasons why I like them. But they also have these beautiful, huge plumes of feathers. Well, what's super interesting about peacocks is that they molt their feathers every season. So the males go from this beautiful, ornate, bejeweled bird with this beautiful, long, elegant tail, and then they molt everything, and then they lose it all. Lose everything, and then they regrow. And this is why this is a really great form of imagery in order to showcase the idea of rebirth and resiliency and finding beauty again, even after you've lost everything. So I think that's a really good message for me to be able to hear, for all of us to be able to hear. And it's fun also to draw peacocks because they're an extremely interesting looking bird. They have a lot of beautiful colors in them and a lot of beautiful designs, down to the markings on their faces as well. So I thought at the same time, as I think about these new ways that we might want to operate, you know, we always want to try to find in the storm the trees that will help us kind of navigate. So this is what we're going to kind of play with. And maybe as we're working on this little journal exercise, maybe it will inspire us to think about new ways to do things in other areas of our life. So really what I'm going to do for this one, now I skipped a page. I don't remember why I skipped a page, but I skipped a page. So I'm just going to work on this empty page that I've got right here. I'm not quite totally sure what I'm going to do for it. What do you think I should draw this with today, Doobs? Do you care? Should we paint? Or should we keep this all dry? We might. Maybe we'll just use the colored pencils today and make it kind of simple. And so I'm just going to play around right now with getting a realistic drawing of my peacock. So I found a little picture of a peacock on the internet. Now I'm using this just for my journal. I'm not selling this. I'm not showcasing it or anything. So this is a photo. Maybe I want to make sure that I don't turn around and make artwork off this photo for sale, especially if I'm drawing it specifically like it, because that's not my photo. And so we want to make sure that we're respecting copyright as we become inspired or we practice. You know, it's very important that we practice off things we see, and we don't always have a chance to be around a peacock to take our own picture. So when you're working for your own work at home for practice, it's okay to use a large variety of any photo that you might find. But when it comes to operating as a professional artist and putting that out there, you want to make sure that you're respecting copyright laws and that you're trying to work off of your own photography as much as you can. So for this purposes, I'm only using this for my art journal. So I'm finding a fun little peacock, and this will help showcase to you how to work off of a realistic kind of picture. And so I think for my piece here, I'm just going to go ahead and just rough draw this in pencil as I kind of ruminate and percolate and think about how I might want to work in this idea that I want to remember, which is I want to be able to be resilient and know that, you know, as feathers molt, that, you know, those are always opportunities to regrow new. And so I'm just kind of working on getting a basic shape here. I might draw them a little bit bigger and a little bit more off to the side, but that's okay. We're just going to kind of go with it. And I'm just drawing in the way that I feel comfortable drawing. Now everybody approaches projects like this differently, and sometimes you'll see the top of my head because I get really close to my drawing, like I suck in. And some people aren't like that, maybe because I'm old, I don't know. But I tend to, I get really, really close to it. And so, again, everybody has a different way that they operate. And again, that's okay. You know, we all create differently. That's the great thing about art, and I think that we all love, is that it's this problem kind of solving process where we get to really just, we're for once not told every road that we have to take to do things. And so I think that's something that, you know, inherently we really love. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you I'm just going to take my pencil, like right here I've got my photo, and I want to kind of get the length of my head. So I just want to showcase some tips and tricks that I use and that I taught some of my high school students when I was teaching art on the regular to use in order to help get the correct proportions. So when we're drawing things realistically, we want to have the right proportions, meaning we want our neck length to equal, you know, the correct length and not have like a humongous head and a teeny tiny beak, right? Realistic proportions meaning they're the same size and that's acceptable and all that jazz. And so when I'm going to work on this, I'm working from a picture on here, which is helpful because I can zoom in when there's something I need to look at, maybe a detail that I want to hone in on. And so right here, really, I'm going to go ahead and set it, and I'm not going to mess with it anymore. And I'm going to use my pencil as like a rudimentary ruler. So I'm going to take this from the crest of my beak to the tip of my beak, and I'm just going to eyeball it and measure it here. And then I'm going to eyeball and measure from the crest to the tip of the head. And so I see it's about the same length as my beak. So that means I'm going to want to do the same thing here in order to get my proportions right. And so I've got a little angle here as well that I can always grab and make sure I've got that right angle in. And so that's where I want my little crest to live. And that helps me start creating the rest of my head shape here. And so you see I'm going to go off the page, and that's okay. I kind of like that actually. And so now about halfway through my beak, I'm going to have another angle come off of here. And that's kind of going to be the rest. Ooh, that comes out at a really nice angle. Okay, I like that. I like how that ends right there. Okay, so I'm going to start working on some of my markings, and I'm still really thinking about resiliency, and the reason why I don't really talk, I bring up the idea, and then I try not to super prattle on, because I also don't want to influence too much. Now you see I'm kind of doing some little estimations here because I'm trying to kind of triangulate where this eyeball lives. And so I'm just kind of trying to get some angles from the crest to that bottom kind of tear duct, and then I'm trying to get some angles here for that crest. And so if I kind of match it for multiple points and I try to mimic those angles, then where they intersect is most likely going to be the correct little spot. So right here is about where I want my I'm going to make that beak a little less fat, is where I'm going to want my eyeball to reside. I do want to go in here and create a little bit of those nostrils. And then I've got that entire kind of shape working here, this white line that kind of exists and lives there. And so this is going to be where I'm going to kind of figure out, oh yeah, I'd say about those are about the right size. And so I'm just going in and I'm working on this idea of my peacock here. You notice the peacock's got a great little tuft of feathers. It's a beautiful little like crown. And so I'm really going to use my beak again. Ooh, it's going to be about the same length up here, so they'll just fit in there. And so those all kind of come from this whole area about here to about there. And so I'm just going to kind of mimic this shape. That way I've got a nice line where I know I want all those to exist, and then I'll have these great little lines that'll come out. And so it'll be kind of big through here. Okay, that'll work wonderfully as a crest. Now we've got to start working on the rest of our peacock. We want to get the rest of our shape in here. And again, we are thinking about all the ways that we can regrow, reshift, change. And think about the resiliency of the bird that goes through having its entire plume and then all of a sudden losing all of it and having to operate differently, you know, because they have to move about differently because those long tail feathers do end up making it a little bit harder for them to do things sometimes. I get kind of haltingly talking when I draw sometimes because I need to shut down sometimes that left side of the brain, which is the language center, really. And so the right side is the creative. So for me, it's hard for me to cross and do both sometimes. It gets better with practice, being able to do both. That's why also some artists are really good at talking as they demonstrate, and they're also really good at working in front of crowds because they're able to crosstalk those brains. And again, if you're an artist that's not like that, like it doesn't always come naturally to me to talk when I do it, but you get to watch me practice it every day, and I think I'm growing as I do it. So it's the same thing for you as an artist. So if you're looking and you have goals and you want to do things that you're like, oh, I can't, I feel too awkward, I can't do it, you know, well, you won't stay awkward for long if you just go for it and start doing it. I'm going to refine this head a little bit more. You see how I'm starting to get a nice little line here. I really actually kind of like where this ended up over here. And now I want to get the neck. And so the neck kind of comes down a little over halfway here. So we've got a beautiful kind of neckline that we can go in. Oh, look at that. I'm going to give it a nice little curve right there at the end. And now I've got some beautiful beginnings of the tail feathers here that I want to go ahead and draw in because I know I want to capture those. And so I've already used my beak to measure other things. So I've decided at this point for my proportion that my beak is my standard. Kind of like if you ever look at a map. Do you remember looking at a paper map? Do you guys remember that? Does anybody? Variety of ages watching, but you know how the map always has a scale on it, right? That way you understand the distance that it represents for every inch, etc. And so when you're working on drawing, in order to use this kind of little cheat of sorts, you know, you want to stick with the same one as you're working on it. And maybe I shouldn't have. I think I was second guessing myself on the beak, curving it inwards. I think it really, after I look at it some more, it needs to stay as fatted as it is. It's looking pretty good so far. I'm kind of happy. So I'm going to use my beak, and I'm going to use that to kind of figure out the length and then the width. So we're about 3/4 of my beak for the width, and man, darn near the length for the beak, just up to that peak there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get an angle first, because really it's kind of going at a certain angle. You see that? So I'm going to take my pencil, figure out that angle, and then I'm going to lay that down. I'm just going to create a little line there. And I think that's about the right spot in the head where it intersects. I mean, it's good enough for government work. Alright, so now I'm going to get my beak length from here, so that I can figure out, oh, it's going to apex about there. And then I'm going to start building out the shape from there. And then this is going to help me build out that main egg shape. So I'm going to build kind of like that brown shape in there. And so this helps me build some shapes in. So we can start getting some of these really nice feathers put in here. I'm probably not going to grab that one in there, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this one. I've got this great one here in the photograph underneath the beak. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, maybe half the beak. About half the beak is about the size. And so I'm just looking at my photo and just trying to mimic the shape and the angles, etc. of everything. That's got some great little things going on there. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and get this one in too. So I'm just trying to get all these shapes in so that I can get like the basic layout for this. And then we'll start talking more about why we chose our peacock here. And again, I'm just working. This is a good practice for a bit of realistic kind of drawing and playing with composition as well. You know, I didn't use the whole photo. I kind of like just having that. Perhaps I missed out on some of the fun of these scaled pieces back here, but I really kind of like this because I want to leave some room in order to, I don't know, write some stuff out, etc. So this is where I'm just going to play around now. I've got like basic structure in here, and there's a lot of feathers just intersecting in here. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of driving myself crazy analyzing the photo trying to figure out where all those go, I'm just going to start playing around with line work. I do know, looking at these, is that the feathers grow up in a pattern and then they grow around and they pull forth from. See how they have this beautiful flowy feel. And so this is going to read as line work when we go in to do that, because there's really not a ton of color in there. And mayhaps I won't do that with my pencil. Perhaps I'll just use all of my colored pencils for that. I don't even know where my colored pencils are, to be honest. So we'll play around with them in that sense. Alright, so I'm going to continue to work on getting some of my design stuff in here. I'm going to actually play around with some of my shaping in here. I can look at my photo for this as well. And perhaps we'll just, maybe we will play with a little watercolor in here. I think this might be fun in order to add just a real light kind of watercolor feel. I do want to pull in some of my shadows though. So I am going to go in here, kind of figure out where those all are. Yeah, mayhaps we'll just use a little bit of watercolor with this. I think this will end up, no, I think we will just stick with colored pencils because we're already at 3:25, and of course I always have to take into account the time, as do you. If you just want to set aside time in order to work on your journals for an hour a day, you know, you want to make sure that you're playing around with the right materials that allow you to meet that time. So right now I'm going to pull out, I've got a big bin of colored pencils. I'm just going to use them for this project. And I'm going to pull out a variety of blues in here. I'm going to need my pencil sharpener. I got an electric one, but sometimes it's a bit of a pain, and it's apparently unplugged right now. I like the old-fashioned ones, because then you can control, and especially with these colored pencils, I'm just using like student grade ones, but if you get the artist grade colored pencils, the pigments, much better, They tend to blend a lot better, and they come across really, really nicely. I want to get some nice jewel tones in here. And I also want to make sure I get some bright, bright greens too. So I'm just kind of getting a bunch of colors together and getting them prepped and ready. That way I can do, that's a little slightly different. That way we can just really start moving and grooving when it comes time to actually get our coloring in. I may want a bit of purple for my shadowing. And here's a real nice dark one. So I'm prepping all my materials right now. This is really helpful in the creative process for me personally, because if I know I've got my materials prepped and I know what colors it is that I'm going to want to use, then it makes it easier for me to just flow and work and blend the colors together. For me at least. But again, this is different for everybody else. I try to show a variety of ways to do things because I know that there's a variety of brains out there. And the whole idea really is that we create. So we just want to make sure that we're working on that and that, you know, we're always working to create. Alright, so I've got a lot of my colors prepped, and so I'm going to start playing around with my peacock first. I'm going to get some little dark areas in. Now I'm going to work on the head. The head's kind of complicated. I've got a lot of little like bulbous circles is kind of what it looks like. So I'm going to create a little pattern here that gives me a basis for my circles because I'm actually going to layer on this. Can you see that way? Oh look, you can see much better. So I'm going to take my peacock here and I'm just going to play around with making a bunch of circles, and then I'll show you how we're going to define these differently in order to create the little shadings. And so this is the first step here, or what I'm planning to do at least. This is my battle plan of attack. Again, this is what's so great about artists, is that we all can have different ways that we approach things. Me, I'm approaching it in this manner. I think this might be a good way in order to get some of this texture and underlying foundation in. And I'm going around all my white stripes that he's got on his face. This is definitely a he. Only the male peacocks have the colorful blooms. The females tend to be drab. I'm actually over here because I have less of a texture underneath the eye, and around here I'm actually going to utilize pointillism in order to get some base texture for, I don't know, some of my little darker areas in here. Remember, we're building up right now. Just building up and playing around with our areas and trying to get this guy kind of farmed out. And so I'm hitting on every area now. I'm just gonna, I've got a bunch of dark in this area. We've got a lot of shadow through there. So this is where I'm just gonna change tempo a little bit. I'm gonna end up going over this again with some other darker colors, but I am gonna get some of the shading in here done. Now we can switch. You see how I'm using a variety of textures right in this head just because it has a variety of textures in there. And so if I build this up, then I can go in and continue to build things up with other colors. And so we're just kind of getting a nice basis in here. I'm trying to make sure I don't have any like major lines showing. And I'm not really going to mess with the neck yet. I think I want to focus just on the head right now. We may not finish this today, and you know, that's a-okay. I'm going to go ahead and get some lights in here done. And I'm just going to go in here and get some nice little white areas done along with my bright blues. And so this is where we're just going to go in and continue to add in more varieties of color. I'm not going to get it exactly like the photo, but what we will achieve is a really cool kind of semblance of the essence of that photo. Which is really the goal as an artist, is we want to play around with things in a way that, you know, we're able to represent things in a way that's in line with our personality. Because really what art is about is trying to show people the ways that you see the world. Okay, I think I'm going to go through and define this a little bit more. I want this area shaded. Where you see how that's starting to grow a little bit. And so I'm just pushing on here, creating more color, more shifts. More little shaded areas. And so I'm just continuing to work on and create these little areas. And I'm going to refine this eye a little bit. We'll go in with some other colors. But you see how this is starting to, I'm going to use some pointillism here. This is starting to really come together. I'm going to put some yellow up in here because we've got some really nice, we've got some really nice kind of bright areas. So I want to make sure I've got some yellow to kind of peek through the rest of our colors. So I want to go in here and add some nice little yellow spots in here because this will make it glow real nice. So you see how this is starting to come through, and really this is a fantastic way to you know, symbolize this starting drab, right? And we're adding color back, and so it's the same thing. Maybe you're feeling blah. Maybe the entire scape of the world is making you feel like you've lost your plumage. Well, you too can be a peacock and regrow that plumage and plan for those times. And you see how we're building this. Man, it's starting to really come alive. I want to be really careful with my black. I'm going to use a real dark violet right here, and I'm going to start building in some of this eye because I really think it'll cause things to come alive. And the eye is really dark, you guys. So I want to make sure I'm also refining the shape of the eye. I want to make sure I keep that highlight there because I sure don't want to cover that up. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to fill some purple in here, a good amount. or violet, same difference. I need a black, and I need my black to be nice and sharp, so I'm going to get that sharpened up, maybe. Ooh, that's a bad pencil. I got a lot of broken lead in that one. Let's try this one. Okay, so I can go in with this now, and I'm going to darken up my eye more. I'm going to use my black to do this. This isn't the best of pencils there. I'm going to get a different sharpener. And so you see how the eye's starting to get some depth. My eye in my photo doesn't have a ton of depth, but if I really look at it and scrutinize it, I can see that brown ring. But we're going to use purple to showcase that, because I think it'll read better in here. And so you see as I darken up this area, how that eye starts getting a really nice definition. You know, I might even, if I put yellow on top of my purple, it'll give me a bit of a brown look. So I'm just going in to give that a little bit more definition. And then I'm going to use my black to build up this idea of depth in here, because the eyes are the windows to the soul. So I want to make sure that I've got this nice and shaded in. Look at how great that eye is really starting to pop now. And I've got more black going on above it. I'm just going to go ahead and get that nice and pushed out. Because then I've got to get the rest of this curvature taken care of. I'm going to make this a little browner in here. I'm just using a combination of the purple and the yellow, because I want it dark, but I don't want it as dark as that black, so you really see how that's popping through. And I'm just kind of bouncing all around because I want to show you guys a variety of ways to work with this colored pencil. And ways to grow the colors, you know. And I'm refining the whole time. I'm looking at my picture as I work on this so that I can see what my shapes are. So I'm looking here, I've got a real dark, I've got a real dark shadow area through here. So I want to kind of recreate that. And I'm really just slowly building. You know, this is about patience, you guys. And building these colors on top of one another. And I'm working on mixed media papers, so I mean, it's not, it's watercolor paper. It's not meant for pencil. Oh, I just broke my lead. So it makes it a little bit harder to get all these rich colors and flavors going on. But that's okay. That's what these journals are for anyways, for experimentation. And mixed media kind of is a good in-between for all of your... I got a lot of broken leads. Goodness. I can't seem to get anything sharpened today. I must have had a child flex this pencil. I'm going to give up on that one and we'll go with a different one here. That'll work just as well. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to get some of the real hard, darker lines that were kind of through here. So I could get those in there and taken care of. And so I'm going to have some little bits that I want to show. So again, we're going to utilize a lot of these things that we learned in our other kind of classes together. And that, you know, pointillism and texturing can be extremely helpful. So I'm just going in, I'm trying to get these little darker areas taken care of. And I'm trying to just kind of move with the shadowing, trying to keep it realistic, but also playing around with the coloring. You don't want to jump to black, even though it might look black. You just don't. It gets too dark and too cold. Black's too cold on its own. We want to build that dark shadowing up richly with our colors. And then I'm going to go through here and I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to use some of my line work around some of these circles that I drew. So I'm actually going to go through here to see how I've got this nice texturing in there. So since I have my circles in there, it gives me a really good basis for how I'm going to kind of hit the underside of these. And so, you know, I can spend as much time on this trying to get this looking as realistic as possible as I want. So if I want to spend time and really zoom in and get all of my little kind of shapes in here exactly how they look in my photo, like I can do that. And you can do that too. So it's just kind of dependent, you know. Doing things realistically is really just about how much time you spend on the details. As with anything with success, it just depends on the, you know, it depends on the details. If your goal is to be detailed, then details are kind of important. So you want to make sure that you're working on those. So I'm getting all this stuff done. I'm also going to go in and get some of my shading taken care of in here, because this is my darker area through here. So I want to get all this darkened up. But I've still got like some of my marks underneath, so they'll bleed through as I do that. And so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to make my marks underneath, and then I can go back in and I can do my softer gradated shading, so that I can you know, have a nice combo of my shadow work and then my texture work. And so I'm just going in and playing around with this, getting some good shading and good textures. Yeah, see how that's turning out? Real fun, real nice. I'm going to go in and continue to add some more of my shading in here. Remember, we're sticking with this purple for now because we don't want that harshness of that black. So I'm going to go through here and continue to build with these colors this really nice shadowing. And then I'm going to use pointillism in here a little bit in order to get my textures. And then I'm going to use my really bright, I have a lighter blue. I think this is as light as it gets for me with my blues. And this one this one's lighter. We'll stick with this one. This is the lightest of the blues. And then I'm going to go in, I'm going to get this nice blue covered in. Oh, look at that. That's going to start reading really neatly, you guys, because I can also blend a bit with my white on top of it. And now we've got really wonderful stuff.
How you manage to be conscious. How you manage to grow and shape this body of yours.
I can do some greens.
That doesn't mean to say that you're not doing it. Equally,
You see how that's
you don't know
creating a beautiful, soft,
how the
beautiful.
universe shines the stars,
I like Ellen Watts.
and
That's fun.
galacticizes the galaxies. You don't know.
I'm going to get my yellows in
But
here.
that doesn't mean to say
Add some more nice pots.
aren't doing it in just the same way as you're breathing without knowing how you breathe.
And I'm going to use my white just to kind of go in here and blend these colors. I'm kind of just going in a nice circular pattern. I don't want to add too much more in this section. We're spending a lot of time on the head. I was kind of meaning to just play with this idea in resiliency, but then I got all excited about drawing the peacock. So I'm just going to kind of let the neck go down, and we'll let this go off into oblivion. We've spent so much time on the face that I don't really want to spend a ton of more time on the rest of this because I want the feathers. We want to have some time to get the feathers in. I got carried away, y'all. I got all excited with this because, man, these are kind of fun to draw. And for me, thinking about peacocks reminds me of my grandparents. You know, when I was a kid, my grandparents, we lived right by them for a short time when I was little, and they had peacocks, y'all. We had 2 peacocks. Oh, they were the most amazing of birds. We had all kinds of interesting animals when I was a kid. You know, I like the city, but, you know, can't deny I got some great country roots too. We had a little acre farm. We ate all fresh vegetables. We had to play in the woods all the time because we had another acre of woods, and it was so much. It was fun. Anyway, my grandparents had peacocks, and so I grew up around these guys, and they would wander the land, and you could hear their little help, help is what their calls sound like. One day I hope to own peacocks again. They're really fun. They're great defenders of the property too. You see how I've got a really fun kind of plumage going on now here, and how quickly that builds. You know, I'm going to go in and hit it with some yellow highlights to kind of pull some things together. But otherwise, that reads pretty well. That's fun. Yeah, so I'm going to use a bit of that black underneath there. Give it some little small hits just of where the darkest of darks would reside, you know. It only works as black only really works when you use it sparingly. You know, I just want to get a couple up there. I do need to finish, I guess. I got to do the beak. So I'm going to get some of these colored in. We're going to just, I am just having a heck of a time with all of my lids. I'm going to get this beak drawn in. I'm going to use like a peaches color for the underlying portion of this, because I think that'll help me the most. And then I'm going to go in and get all these shapes in. I'm going to start getting my browns built. And so you see how I start building this beak out. I need a black. Build this out a bit. So that I can get I have my hard line here for this beak. Because that's that shape that I've got going on in there. And you really see how this is starting to come together. And how that starts just kind of delineating. And starts just really becoming defined. And how beautiful that just starts making all of these little sections look. You know, building things up and defining, maybe not in all the sections, but just in the spots that really need that darker core. You see how I'm building all of this out, and see how rich this is becoming as we work and build all these out. And it really just takes patience. Just like it takes time and patience to grow our feathers back, it takes patience for us to build this really nice feeling of regrowth and embracing it. These are good things for us as people to remember. So I'm going to go in and kind of get some more of this defined. It's not that defined in the photo, but I think my drawing needs it, so I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of line at the top and a little bit of line at the bottom, and then I'm going to kind of leave it. I do want to go in and kind of darken some of this a little bit, and then I definitely want to go in and darken part of this and really give underneath this neck proper attention. You know, this is an animal with a rich art history kind of history, and then it's also an animal with a very rich history period when it comes to imagery and all that jazz. So I'm going in, I'm going to get the rest of this yellow covered up with this nice teal color. And then I'm going to go in with my white, whoops, with the right side of my white. And I'm going to use circular motions, and I'm going to get some of this stuff blended. This white's going to work really well. I'm working on a watercolor paper. And so this is just going to blend out some of my colors a little bit in my highlight areas, and just, you know, take some of that kind of sketchy quality out. And look how cool this is starting to look, you guys. And so I'm going to go in. I've got a bunch of lines that need to be created for these guys. So I'm just going to kind of go in and create a bunch of these. And they don't really have to be anything special. You know, I'm just working on defining these a little bit. And I'm just going to do some partial lines at the top and bottom, you see. You know, we play around with our textures and our lines. And so I'm not going to do an entire straight line. I did that with my lighter brown. But, you know, I'm just going to hit it a couple times with my black, because then that'll help me kind of define them and not have them be really super boom in your face, you know. And so maybe I'll hit these with a bit of yellow in some spots as well. And so this creates a really cool kind of plumage, etc. for me to play around with. Man, this is looking really neat. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start just playing around with these colors here. I'm going to get this bright kind of blue going. And I'm going to leave these more sketchy. You know, we're not going to do a ton of stuff with these because we want to get some fun stuff going on around our peacock. We may pick this up actually on another one because I wanted to play around too with adding in some verbiage of sorts. You know, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get these colors put in. I bet you we got enough time to do all of it. And so I'm going to do these really, I'm going to do these as a really loose translation of the peacock feathers. We're just going to leave this nice and super sketchy. And not sketchy in the sense of, hey, that dude over there looks sketchy, but just sketchy in the sense of, you know, we're sketching. And so I'm going in and I'm just kind of filling in this main kind of golden color. I'm using a brownish color just to really loosely get it in here and define. And then I'm going to use a nice royal blue color in here. Oh, that's a purple. My bad. We'll use a blue color in here. So, thinking about what we're playing around with, actually I want to do the yellow around here. So I'm going to kind of surround this with yellow because it's a bright green, but it's also a lot brighter around the eye. And so I'm just going to surround the eye with a bit of yellow, because we're going to take these guys and they're just going to, we're going to use the green in order to create the rest of the feathers. Because really the feathers are green all the way around it. So you see how we've got this really great kind of beginning for this. I do want to go around, maybe define these guys a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to start kind of building some of my tines. And so we know that the feathers have a certain grow pattern. And so I want my lines to kind of go around my eyes. You see that? And I'm not really going to pay attention to this other one over here. I'm going to create this guy. You notice I didn't create all those lines right there, so I'm just going to kind of go in. And I'm just going to build these guys together. Now I can build these up in a lot of different ways. I'm just going to keep the line work fairly simple around these guys. But we do want them to kind of go off. And so this is a really fun way in order to fill out the background. You know, we have a really great contrast here with this real refined kind of face. And then with our different feathers and just basic line work in the background. I'm just going to go in and just kind of fill this in, and maybe I'll have some lines going behind that. And so I'm just filling all of this in with some really nice kind of basic lines. And so now I can kind of play around, and maybe I can. I think we can run over a little bit. We'll be fine. It won't kill us. And I'm just going to fill in something that I think is really important for us to remember, is that for us, working on art and working on our journals is that, you know, art has always been this thing that pulls apart or pulls forward transformation. And so transformation is really, really important. So art's one of those things that helps us do that. And so we want to kind of get that down in here, and remember that was our focus as we were working on this little journal exercise. So I want to make sure that I get a great little reminder of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and write this in. And I just like write my things on here. I don't do a ton of, I don't know why that suddenly got so bright, but I don't do a ton of, what do you call it, different things with there. There we go, that's much better. Is a constant agent of transformation. And I'm just following along some of these lines and writing along them because I think that that just makes it seat into it a little bit better. And is indeed the soul's drive to health. Yeah, so art is the constant agent of transformation, is indeed the soul's drive to health. And so that's really kind of the basis of us working. I'm going to turn this light off because I think it's too bright. Is the basis for us working on our art journals. So we had a really fun time playing around. I guess you can't really see that very well. We'll do it on the other one here. We had a really great time playing around with our art journal, playing around with doing a bit of realistic drawing using our dry media, and you see how that just comes out and we create almost a really fun kind of watercolor look for this. And I had a lot of fun working on this. This is a great way to take a small section, really refine and do something sharper, and then relaxing and letting go of the other stuff. You get a really fun contrast between that sketch quality and the realistic quality, and it also lets us explore this idea of letting go of our beautiful feathers and knowing that we're also still this beautiful entity that can regrow and pull things back into, you know, this beautiful plume that maybe we feel like we lost, but we really didn't. It's just, you know, it's going to come back and regrow. So these are really fun ways to play around with these concepts, really fun ways in these small journals to play around with practicing concepts. I don't always get to practice ultra realistic, and I don't always work in colored pencils, so this is also something that's very good for me to work on as well. I'm really happy you guys hung out with us today. Please make sure that you are looking at our website, you're looking at our Facebook page, you're joining our YouTube subscriber list. These are ways that you can help us figure out ways that we can monetize, make money to help us stay alive. These are very, very important things that we need. If you click that subscriber button, you get us over 1,000 followers, we can get to that point. So do your part, share out info about us. If you know other people that maybe don't know that we exist and we are around, share that info out. These are easy, inexpensive, free ways that you can help support the things that we do and allow us to continue to do things like these ArtCo afternoon arts and bring these to you and hang out with Doobs and draw and learn how to do a variety of techniques and learn how to use a variety of mediums. Make sure you're looking at our schedule. We offer a different kind of class every day of the week except for Sundays, and we also do long-term projects. We also have a wonderful channel with live music streaming all the time. I'm also hosting another front lawn concert in my front yard on September 5th featuring Mahogany, a fantastic trio. So make sure you're looking out for that. Oh, we've got some great shows coming up. I've been prepping stuff in the backyard, like I said. And this weekend, y'all, is our 3rd anniversary weekend. I am excited. I hope that you guys can, I'm having problems with that. I hope you guys can tune in, watch our streams. Please make sure we've got live stream tickets on sale online. That's a fantastic way to help support Deep Ellum Art Company. Click online, buy those virtual tickets. We do so much more than just bring music. We are a community center that helps grow the creatives, support them, and helps them figure out new resilient ways to operate in this crazy changing scape of today. As always, I'm always excited and I have fun creating with you. I will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. I hope you guys have a great day. It looks like it's going to be pretty stormy here in the DFW area tonight / tomorrow morning. So make sure you guys are careful out there. And I am excited to hopefully see some people in person soon if we can get our doors open. So make sure that you're also supporting live event venues like us with SaveOurStages.com. Make sure you're supporting that legislation, contacting your city members to support that legislation. Otherwise, lots of reports have come out saying about 90% of your live music venues are going to go away otherwise. So if you want to keep those types of places around, please make sure you're actively supporting them because they won't stay around on their own magically how things have been going. So we want to make sure we have that on the other side of things because those are things that not only are fun, but they're also things that are very important for our mental health. It's important for us to be able to relax. It's important for us to have balanced lives. And so, you know, keeping your favorite spots open are things that are also good for you and good for community. All right, I will catch you guys next time. You have a beautiful day.